Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome to another episode of Perspective. I'm pleased to be with you once again, 2 days away from Freedom Day, and that of course means another public holiday. But it's not just about another public holiday. It's about us as South Africans doing self-introspection, reflection, seeing where we've been, where we're at the moment, and where we're headed for. And I'm so pleased that this is a discussion I'm going to be having with my guest. He is an author, he's a journalist and a scriptwriter as well. Zunaid Mosam is his name, and he's here to talk to us about his book and about a whole host of things, not forgetting a focus on Freedom Day as well, as I'm indicated in 2 days' time, inshallah. So as they say, I'm in the company of a Bandiet, the Coolie Bandiet. He's in studio with me, and we're going to unpack his book, which is called Coolie Bandiet. Assalamu alaikum, welcome to the program.
Wa alaikum salam, Julie, and assalamu alaikum to all your viewers. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak about Coolie Bandiet.
I've been wanting to talk with you for a very, very long time. And when we look at the title of your book, and I'm going to hold it up to the camera so people can get a look at the cover of the book. This is what it looks like. It's not yet available in hardcover, is it?
Not as yet. The revised version is coming out. In fact, I published 1,000 copies in 2021, and all of them have been sold out. And, you know, I've donated some to schools. It was sponsored by various people. And hopefully, once I raise enough funds, because it's self-published, I'm planning to get another 1,000 copies again and do a book tour this time, go to various towns and cities, and also go to various book festivals and promote the book there.
Let's talk about Coolie Bandiet. And when I look at the name, you know, the title of the book, I refer to you as the Bandit. Met my in the Kamer. Why Coolie Bandiet? Why those two words? And Coolie, is it not a derogatory term in our free South Africa?
Yes, Julie, you're right there. I mean, from the onset, I must apologize. But as a writer, I'm taking that license, and I will explain. In fact, in my forward, or in the author's note, in the revised version, I explain why I use the word Coolie. So when I was detained, you know, the word was used very leisurely by my interrogators, you know, the police. Even the other word, the K word, the derogatory K word, was used, you know, leisurely by them. And with some experience that I had with family where, you know, so coming back to a dorpy, people are very close-knit, you know, they know each other. So I recall one day someone came to the shop and said, "You're Coolie so-and-so," and I was very upset, you know, and I said, you know, "Are you going to allow him to speak to you? A white man are you going to allow him to speak to you like that?" And, you know, because they didn't want to confront the man, you know, my dad just told me, "Zunaid, just keep your mouth shut and go away." So, I mean, it didn't bode well with me. However, I just scalped it and I went. And when I got detained, I mean, this word was used so leisurely by them, you know. From the prior to my detention, when I was taken into a courtroom one day, you know, when I was sitting in one of the court cases where 2 army soldiers murdered a black woman. They raped and murdered her. I don't think, you know, it irked many of the police and security branch. So basically, in a sense, if you look at our country as a whole, I mean, the dispossession, apartheid itself, it's all about abuse, you know, taking away your dignity, dispossession of the land. And for me, the word Coolie denotes all that, you know. So that's why I use the word Coolie. Bandit in Afrikaans means someone against the law. And I mean, the fact that
A bandit.
A bandit, yeah. So, I mean, because we were against apartheid, I mean, in all its forms, you know, so that's why I use the word bandit, like, you know. And also, you know, the book is a lot, I write a lot about my time in prison, in solitary confinement, and, you know, spending time with other comrades or activists in the communal cells.
So the book mainly deals around your impressions of the apartheid system, growing up, being incarcerated, but it's very anecdotal. It also talks about the people that are closest to you or were closest to you in your life, people close to your heart, and how that shaped you, Zunaid Mosam, as an author. And two of those people, the number one person in your life was obviously your mother. Talk to us about what sort of an influence she had on you as you were growing up. And in the book itself, what mention do you make about her? Mothers are so special.
Absolutely.
They just leave this lasting impression and legacy by whichever form or way. Let's talk about your mother.
So, in fact, if you look at the first chapter entitled A Rude Awakening, I mean, it tells you why I actually get involved you know.
And we don't want to give too much away because we want people to go out and get the book.
Absolutely, no, absolutely. So, you know, when I was arrested, in fact, I was awoken early on Friday 13th of June 1986, and I saw the security branch, you know, hanging over me, and I'm looking and I said, "No, what's happening here?" So then I realized my time has come, you know, because many comrades or activists that I knew were detained prior to me. But I think when emergency regulations was implemented on the 13th, you know, I was one of the first ones they came for. And, you know, I looked at my mom and I and in my mind I'm saying, you know, Mom, you're responsible for this, my arrest, because of your nurturing, your you know, giving us good values, you know, to be always good to people. In fact, one of the things that we used to do when we were little kids, myself and my late brother Afzal, is we would run around with a money box every Friday to go and collect money for Yatawal Masakin. You know, it's an orphanage in Durban. So, you know, you know, if the neighbors didn't have food, you know, go and give them food. And that made me aware of not myself only, but, you know, of people around me, that not only I need things in life, there's people around me that need also. So, you know, that was the values that she gave us, you know, to emulate. And I think, you know, ever since, you know, that was what we did, you know. In fact, you know, my dad lost his job. Actually, they fired him when I got arrested.
That incident is in the book as well, is it not?
Also, yeah. So we actually had to pack up because what we did is we rented our house to somebody and went to live in Polokwane, Petersburg. At that time it was Petersburg.
Did you move because of the possible harassment by the security police?
No, actually we moved because my dad got fired and he managed to get a job elsewhere. And then my sister...
But you were the direct result of his being fired, were you not?
Yes.
Tell us that story.
So I was arrested, and I think it was about a few weeks. So remember, once you're arrested, you have no access to lawyers or family for a period of time. And later on, you know, once they've done their interrogation thoroughly with you, then they allow you to have access to the lawyers and your family. So I just came out of so my arresting officer was a security branch officer by the name of Sergeant Peter Holmes. So there was one, Peter Holmes threatened. He says, you know, after an interrogation, he says, you know, if you're not going to tell us, you know, what we want, you're going to be sitting here for a long time. So I said, well, there's nothing else to say. You know, I've told you whatever I wanted. You made up fabricated stories about what my involvement, including training people with an AK-47, whereas I'm like scared to hold a water gun for, you know. And then as he stood up to go, he came to me and said, by the way, I just want to inform you that your dad got fired from his job. And he had a smirk on his face.
Because of your
Of my arrest,
involvement
yeah, well-
in, obviously, in politics.
So-
Were you tortured at any point whilst you were in
No, I wasn't.
prison?
No, I wasn't tortured, but I know of many of them, like Mike Moatzi, Spunky, Imran Lunat, a friend, a comrade of mine, activist from school days, involved, Freddie Maruta, Lasipala, many of them I know. In fact, when they brought detainees from Mokopane, which is like about 100 kilometers from Modimolle, one of the detainee or activists I met was Boise Chole, who later became the first mayor during the transitional period. And Boise had no marks on his body, no physical signs on his body to say that he was beaten. But he had a lot of internal injuries.
But he was beaten.
So I used to see, during our breaks, I spent a lot of time with Boise, while he was healing, so he would take his medication during our 1 hour break. So, you like 23 hours in hold up, and 1 hour you have your break to shower, have your breakfast and jog around or just chat with people. Yeah, so Boise was one of the others that was. So, in fact, when you go through some of the like the TRC accounts of people that have been tortured who appeared before the TRC. There are a whole lot of. In fact, you can just write anecdotal account of each one,
Absolutely.
2-3 pages of each one. You can have another book on it.
Okay, I know a lot of that is contained in the book, and we do urge people to go out when the book is available on sale, to go out and get a copy of the book, but we will talk some more right after the break. My guest is author Zunaid Mosam. He comes from Modimolle. He spent some time in prison, obviously as a political prisoner. Times have moved on. We are in a free South Africa 30 years later, and he's going to talk about that as well in a short while. But we are here to talk about his book, Coolie, Bandiet. So please do stay with us. Welcome back. My guest is Zunaid Mosam. He's from Modimolle. He's here to talk about his book, Coolie, Bandiet. He self-published a couple of years ago. He sold out his first 1,000 copies. He's in the process of reprinting the second 1,000 copies. And as soon as it's available, we're going to go out and grab a copy for ourselves. Coolie, Bandiet. How have people responded to the name, apart from your immediate family? And have you had anyone ever say to you that the title of the book is offensive?
Look, so far nobody, because before I used the word, I bounced the idea with activist friends of mine to say, what do you think of it? And they had no objection. So that, sort of made it a bit kosher for me. Then I had one or two objections, but not, very serious. People didn't really say, you shouldn't be using it or that kind of sort. Some family members objected. But on the whole, people were very happy about reading the book. I think it was of minor importance. Just having to read the book was.
I think it was very eye-catching. I mean, if the book was entitled, differently, I might not have given it a second glance. But I think the title Coolie, Bandiet is really, it captures your imagination. Yeah. You're wanting to know, what's this all about? Why has he used this derogatory term in the title of his book? I need to get the book, I need to read, what's this all about? And of course, when I looked at the title, I also immediately jumped to the conclusion that you must have been a political activist. When and how old were you when you started being conscientized to the drastic political situation in our country, the segregation, the apartheid, and how big an impact did it have on your life?
Look, I come from Modimolle, a Dorpy where, in fact, the book is like a snapshot of the racialized realities of the town, So, I mean, when you're young, you don't actually, you actually accept it to a certain degree. If you were not allowed to go to a park or use certain amenities, you accepted it. I actually schooled at S02 College in Durban, because there was no high school in Mudimule, so we had to go out. So at the 10th of age, I had to leave Mudimule and go to Durban. And I recall that, some of the senior students were discussing about the Soweto uprising in 1976, June 16th. And, that was the first time when a friend of mine, Magasilan Mudli, and I, actually got conscientized. But, we used to read a lot of, bring articles to school to read. Magasilan would actually draw on the board, of a major event. If it was a plane crash, he was quite a good artist. So, slowly that's how we became conscientized. And then I recall around the same time, 3 students from the University of Westfield were detained. I think there's Rashid Meel, Lloyd Padiachi, and Yunus Karim, I think, if I'm not mistaken. They were detained. And so I lived in Hampson Grove, and a lot of students would come and visit there, and they would talk about this. But again, once again, I'm not conscientized to the extent where I'm going to now, go and protest. And then I came to school. I left Durban, and I schooled in Trinity. And there I used to write about against apartheid. And one of my first essays was Apartheid Fragments Society. And family member that I was staying with, they said, you write things like that, you're going to be detained, and, you're putting us at risk also. And so a week later, my dad came to fetch me, and he took me out of school. And I refused to go back to an Indian school. In fact, I ran away twice when they put me in Indian school. And I studied through Demlin or Lyceum College at the time. And, that's how I became more conscientized, writing. In fact...
How active were you as a political activist?
Not directly active with any
organization. Just with your writing?
Just with my writing at that stage. The Rand Daily Mail...
at the time.
Which is defunct now, yeah. Used to give the readers an opportunity, not a letters column. They would ask, like, what do you think of the elections in Zimbabwe, And I would always write, and what do you think of what kind of South Africa would you like? And I would write as a type of South Africa I would like to live in. And my grandfather, actually, someone came for a license, a gun license, and they came for reference to my grandfather. And then the cop pulls out these articles, and he asked my grandfather, who wrote this? And my grandfather, so elated, says, no, my grandson. So the cop says, tell him that if he's going to write things like that, he'll find one part of his body in one part of the country and the other part of the body in another part. So, and then look, that's how it all started off, from my writing. In fact, at the time, I didn't even belong to any political organization. Although I have a strongly believe in the Black consciousness philosophy. Till today, I still believe in the Black consciousness philosophy. So that's how it happened. And then when I left, I was studying through UNISA, doing political science and psychology, and I decided to quit my job and decided to come back home and just quit whatever other activity and concentrate on my studies. And one morning I got a young man came to visit me by the name of Charlie McConey, and we began chatting, and he says, comrade, I need help. I said, what? He said, no, I want to sue the police. And I looked at him, what do you mean you want to sue the police? For what? And when he lifted his jacket, Julie had welts on his back. And, that's how I got involved, with the Pakhameng Youth Congress, which was in our township. Look, a lot of youth from Mudimule. In fact, I was the only one that was actually involved with the Pakhameng Youth Congress.
The only Indian?
The only Indian, yeah. A lot of them were apolitical or were indifferent to what was happening in the country as a whole. In fact, sometimes when people go and protest for Palestine, and I actually look at it with skewed eyes.
But it's a different generation.
Yeah, but also even the elder, you couldn't pick up, you couldn't lift your hand for what they did during apartheid, and now all of a sudden, and okay, alhamdulillah, they're doing it, it's fine. But sometimes, we, as an activist, I begin to question these things.
Do you talk about the horrid measures of intimidation, physically, mentally, and emotionally, on political prisoners? Do you cover that in your book as well? And I think that's one of the reasons why I think the older people back in the day were too scared to be involved in anything political at all because they were scared they're going to be harassed, intimidated, tortured, because we heard awful stories at the time about the apartheid regime.
Well, look, when your family, especially your loved ones, know that you're involved, they're always flaunting, the names like Imam Harun, what's his name, Ahmad Timol, especially those Muslims that were, I've read books on Steve Biko, being one of my heroes in our struggle. The other one is, forgot his name now, from the Pan-Africanist Congress, So, being aligned to that kind of political ideology, I found them they were like my heroes. I found, what they said sort of, resonated with me.
Okay, you've documented all of that. It's, as you've indicated, this is your memoirs, and we should get the book and read it to understand who you are. And it also gives us, I should imagine, a snapshot of life back in the days of apartheid, because your story is a universal story of oppression, suppression, etc. But how did it impact on your everyday life? What was your life like? How did it impact on your parents, your siblings, and your immediate community? And I should imagine Modimolle had and has a small Muslim community.
Well, it's a predominantly Muslim community, and in fact, the day I was arrested, the Bush media worked very, very fast, because within a few minutes, almost the whole community was, especially the men, the elders of the community, were at my house, pleading with them. Look, it impacted it quite a bit on my family. From 1987 or to 86, right up to 1994. We were sort of in limbo because, my dad was working in Johannesburg. My mom, my brother and sister and I were in Polokwane. And my one brother was studying at University of Westville. The one that is deceased now, he was studying law at University of Westville. So in fact, my dad was the only breadwinner. And in fact, I was under restrictions I was under restrictions in Modimolle for about 3 months. And then I thought if I write a letter to say that I found a job, I got a friend to give me a letter to say he'll employ me in Polokwane. I thought they'd lift the restrictions, but then all they did is that the restrictions remained, but I couldn't leave the magisterial district of the Polokwane.
But they allowed you to go to Polokwane?
No, they allowed me to go, yeah. But then I found a job as a lecturer in a private college there. Yes, and then look, it was quite tough.
Any bitterness when you cast your mind back to the days of apartheid and how it impacted on your life? What do you believe it's actually taken away from your life? Being an activist, I should imagine you were fighting for the rights of all of us in South Africa, but you had to give up a lot of your own personal freedoms as well within your own family unit. But do hold that thought. I'd like you to respond right after the ad break. My guest is Zunaid Mosam. He is the author of the book Coolie, Bandiet, a must read. I do hope you're going to go out and get yourself a copy as soon as it is available. It is, I think, going to be published real soon. So stay with us, lots more to cover. We're privileged to have the author of Coolie, Bandiet in the studio with us this morning. He is Zunaid Mosam. He comes from Modimolle, and he's here to share his story with us. And a lot of what I've been covering in the interview this morning is contained in the book. But of course, that is really in-depth. So as soon as the book is available, I do hope and pray you're going to go out, get a copy of the book, read it, and just understand what apartheid South Africa was all about. Back in the day, what our parents, our grandparents, and all the senior citizens of the country were subject to back in the day. How was your life impacted? And have you ever given thought to the fact, Zunaid, that had you not been a political activist, what your life would have turned out to be?
It's a bit of a tough question because I've never ever reflected on that. I think one of the regrets that I do have is that I was one of those that believe freedom now and education later. And so that was the focus. I mean, whether I was educated at the time or not, I always wanted to become a journalist, which I eventually did. And I thought if I would have continued going to school, not being so involved, not being so extreme to a certain degree, because, abandoning your studies for freedom is a bit extreme in a sense,
But someone had to do it.
We had to do it. But you could apply some kind of duality there, where you could study on one and sort of continue with your activism. So I think that's the only regret. And then the only other regret is, the impact it had on my parents, especially my dad. So
were they ever harassed at any time, apart from your dad having lost his job? Because that was a form of harassment. They were hitting out at you and your family.
Yes. No, they weren't harassed. Not that I know of. They weren't harassed. But like I said, it was difficult. Like my dad being the only bread winner in the family at the time. Having no job, my mom having to sell her jewelry.
You have nieces and nephews. They are of this generation. What are their thoughts on the book? And when you share your stories with them, how do they respond? Because we're living in a totally different world. We're living in a world of freedom, and we are living in the instant age.
I don't think they could actually grasp what was happening at the time. So one of the things that I did is, I used to tell those anecdotes that I write about in Coolie Bandiet is, I used to repeat them to the kids, like my nieces and nephews. And in fact, I repeated so many times, it actually kept the story alive. But they were sort of, maybe but a stronger term, they were sort of blasé about it in a sense. Because like, if you come post-1994, if you didn't support South Africa in a cricket match, the kids would ask you, Uncle, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you supporting?
True.
It's our team.
Yes.
But they don't know the significance of the Sakos
and the history.
Boycott, where, Hassan Hawa said there can be no normal sports in an abnormal society kind of thing. So I don't think they could grasp it, but then one of my nieces, she helped me. She actually read. She helped me edit the book because I'm a terrible editor. So she helped me. In fact, she was living in Dubai at the time, Zunaid, and she helped me, write, edit, and was quite upbeat about the book. Broadly, family, friends, I would get family or friends telling me, I couldn't put the book down. I had to read it in one sitting, kind of thing. Which was, a plus for me.
Absolutely, what a compliment.
Exactly. My dad, he sat one whole day and he read it. And in fact, I got a picture of him reading the book again, So, look, my mom was more very religious. If we didn't do the hadith or the Quran, she wouldn't simply pick it up. But, I would speak to her about it, In fact, I got the first draft. I actually got a picture with her with the first draft of Coolie Bandiet.
People have gone out and bought the book and have read the book. What do you want them to take away having read the book? What is the type of experience you want them to have had, whether they grew up in apartheid South Africa or whether they are the new generation growing up in the new dispensation? What is it that you want to leave them really pondering about the most regarding this book?
You see, whatever happens in South Africa currently, nobody must ever say we lived much better under apartheid. It's a lie. You hear a lot of people saying, we've lived better under apartheid. And like, really, you did? How was that?
I hear that all the time.
Maybe you were a bit of a privilege coming from an affluent area. Go to the townships and go and see what's happening there. Currently, also, the remnants of apartheid is still there in those townships. And in fact, I was fortunate that I worked a lot in townships. Although when I came to Johannesburg, I worked with the Transvaal Indian Congress, with the UDF, all those other organizations. But in Modimolle, I mean, I worked mainly with black comrades that I knew. So don't ever go and say, tell me, you lived better under apartheid. No, you didn't. You're lying. You're getting more opportunities now. Your kids can go to a better school. You have better access to the economy of this country if you have the money, or you can, you start a business. So there's lots of things. You can live wherever you were. Those weren't there during apartheid. I mean, in fact, I've got transcripts of the housing board when the group areas act, when the Modimolle Indian community had to move out of the town, and when live in 3 kilometers on the outskirts of the town, where I don't know who they were going to trade with the buck that roamed there, or the cattle that across the fence. So I mean, today you go there, you can in the CBD you can open up your businesses. So yes, we have lots of problems in South Africa currently, which we will come to at a later stage. So yeah, and learn to be selfless. I'm going to bring in the Palestinian issue now. There's a call for a boycott. When there was one of the things that we did during apartheid is call for a boycott of white businesses, because many of our activists and fellow comrades were being detained, and we called for a boycott of white shops in Modimolle. And
was it effective?
It was very difficult to say, because it was during the same time people were arrested. I mean, I got arrested also during that period. So the leadership, wherever you were, in Bella Bella, Modimolle,
any small town.
Any small town. I mean, the core of the leadership were put in jail. I mean, for instance, now, I take a product like Coke, and I don't know whether I can speak about it.
Of course, go ahead.
I mean, I remember visiting some family, and they say, no, we must have Coke with our biryani. Like, really? You can't stay without Coke? I mean, that drop of Coke that you're drinking is murdering a child in Palestine.
I can see how emotional you're getting.
So,
and the reason for your being so emotional is because of your journey. Your journey was pretty difficult. Any regrets about being an activist back in the day? If you had the opportunity of changing things, what would you have changed about your life?
I really, my journey was, alhamdulillah, it was a journey where I was an activist in my town, in different cities, towns. I mean, I spent time in detention. It learned me to appreciate my fellow comrades, how they share the impact that they had, for us as Muslims when we pray. I mean, the response to, when they had, in fact, when we used to fast Mondays and Thursdays, myself and Imran, and eventually we had, when I left, I recall 11 to 13 of other comrades that joined us fasting. So where we had this exchange of ideas, you begin to see how the other world lives also. I mean, I live in Modimolle. At that time, it wasn't called Assalam, it was called the Indian area. And I never had this opportunity to know what what the people in Pakameng, what their conditions were. Occasionally you'll go, because my dad had a soccer team in the township. We would go to the grounds on the outskirts of the area, but you don't really go and examine. It's just like a fleeting moment you have in the township. And I had that opportunity to understand, and then I came back to my town to reinstate our position as black people, to become decision makers in our town. And I went through that process with them, which is, I'm very fortunate. I served in the first transitional local...
That was in the new dispensation,
in the new
obviously.
Dispensation, yeah. That's in 1990, around 96, that's when they established the transitional local councils. I mean, I served on various bodies in the province. Currently I serve on the Limpopo Geographic Names Committee. So I'm quite a bit involved currently. And I mean, post I mean, I've been part of the development of the town, economic development, the transformation of the town, you know, from a lily white management of the town council to getting people from other groups to become, to take up management positions in the town council.
And become stakeholders.
And stakeholders, yes.
Okay, we need to go for our final ad break, inshallah, and then when we get back, we're going to be wrapping up.
Thanks.
Coolie Bandiet is the author, the author of the book. Sitting in a studio with me, he is Zunaid Mosam. He comes from Wadimole. I think back in the day it was known as Nilestrom, am I correct?
Yes,
there you go. We'll be talking some more right after our final ad break. To wrap up, we'll talk about the current situation right here in South Africa. Welcome back, and with about 12 minutes to wrap up time, my guest, of course, is Zunaid Mosam, the author of the book Coolie Bandiet. He has given us an overview, the life and times of the Coolie Bandiet. That, of course, is Zunaid Mosam, and he's been an activist from a very tender age. Let's ask him about any regrets that he might have, and let's talk about Freedom Day. Do we have lots to celebrate? Is it something we ought to be celebrating, given what's going down in the country right now? Welcome back.
Thank you.
Before we get to Freedom Day, let's talk about your life. Any regrets at all? Would you do things differently if you had the opportunity to do it all over again?
I think I'll be more committed to the struggle. I mean, I don't know whether, I actually haven't mentioned it to you that I was asked to join Umkhonto weSizwe by a comrade, and, like I told you, I can't even get a water gun. But I think I would join a resistance movement of that magnitude, but not working, fighting, but probably, intelligence or that kind of stuff. I think I do well there. I would have continued my studies. One, I think that's my major regret. So yeah, I think not much. I wouldn't. I wouldn't.
A life well lived, alhamdulillah.
Absolutely.
Alhamdulillah.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you do believe you've made an impact, even if you've just created awareness by way of your incarceration and by way of the book that you've written, Coolie Bandiet.
Look, I came back to my town, in a small way. We about 4 of us that had to take up the cudgels of transformation. And yes, Coolie Bandiet explains all that. How did we go about doing it? Yeah, so I'm quite happy.
Alhamdulillah.
Okay, we all like everything that's happening in the country currently. The new dawn hasn't dawned. We're still in darkness. So
and that leads me to my all-important question. In 2 days' time, we're going to be celebrating a public holiday, which is called Freedom Day. 30 years on in the new dispensation in our democracy, which is touted as the best constitution in the world. What do you have to say about Freedom Day? What do you have to say about the new dispensation? What do you have to say about the changes or no radical change as far as our lives are concerned or the lives of the masses are concerned? What would you have liked to have seen 30 days on in South Africa as we move into Freedom Day?
Look, one of the biggest things that we can celebrate post 1994 is the fact that we are free. And I think, when you read the book, you'll also begin to value that freedom. Those that bore the brunt of apartheid, will understand why, it's important that we celebrate this day. Yes, we're having enormous problems in our country, from, basic service delivery,
corruption,
the corruption,
wide
the
scale
nepotism in the country. Once again, we need to stand up against it. I'll give you an example. I think when I was in a councillor, I recall there was a project, a water project in a small rural area called Valwater. And before the service provider could put one brick, he was paid 14 million rand. And so they took action against the persons responsible. And I don't want to mention names here, but suffice to say he was detained with me in '86. And when he took it on, so the CC got the CCMA, sort of found him guilty, and he had to leave. And when he went on, what's the word, man? I can't. When he took the case on review, the ANC decided to reinstate him. And so myself and a few other ANC members, together with the DA, and I'm not like punting for any political organization, the DA, we actually protested against it. In fact, when I sat with the Chamber of Commerce, the Saka Kamer in Modimolle, to say what we're going to do, the one guy asked, Khani oorlog, is he going to war? I said, well, you know what? This is about basic rights of water, which is a basic right, a human right. And the project hasn't even started, and you're given money. I mean, you should think in those terms, not like, and in fact, he was like fired again.
However, there is a narrative which suggests that back in the day of apartheid, these type of practices were very widespread amongst the whites and the Afrikaners.
Yeah, absolutely.
So really what we're seeing unfolding now is not really any different, other than the guys involved are very blatant about what they're doing.
Yeah.
So do we still, having said that, do we still have to be celebrating Freedom Day, knowing that as taxpayers we're being robbed? We are being robbed of our hard-earned money.
But, I mean, the fact that we celebrate Freedom Day, we have the right to protest against. We have the right to take action against it, which we are not doing. I mean, I come from Modimolle. Come and see the potholes down there. I'm constantly harassing the people, the municipality, electrical department, the roadworks department. We need to stand up for ourselves.
Do you think that's the answer?
Some of us, absolutely.
Civil uprising.
I mean, the other option is that you form your look. There's a clause, I think, in the Systems Act or the Structures Act of the municipality that says you can form your own committees. To run your
working committees.
Sort of, legally you can form those committees. Your rent association, with your
ratepayers.
Great Ratepayers Association. You can do it. Why are we not using that option? Is it so difficult for us? So basically, no matter what, you still have that option. There's laws that can prevent, although some people use a Stalinist tactic to try and prolong the cases. So that's you can do. I mean, we need to begin to defend for ourselves, I mean, one of the other things is that if you look at the land issue in this country, we haven't dealt with the land issue. I mean, you go from Modimolle, you go north, south, east, west, all the land is owned by the white landowners.
How do you believe, as a person, as an activist growing up in apartheid South Africa, how do you believe the land issue should be addressed? Apart from what some political parties are saying, land grab without compensation. Your thoughts?
No, I don't think that's an option. The land grab wouldn't be an option. But look, I have to go into it because I haven't really thought about it. But within your area, within the municipality, you have certain areas. I mean, we need to look at, in terms of our integrated development planning, see how we can plan in such a way that we leave land for development, for business development, because what's happening in some of the areas, all the land is going for RDP housing. So RDP housing is not necessarily the response, to the land issue. If there's farmland.
What about agriculture? Exactly.
Agriculture, like in Modimolle, I actually worked for the municipality dealing with economic development, where we established co-ops and gave them a piece of land to work on. But that's not. We need to begin to think big. How do we begin to get people? So it must be all inclusive, like a one-stop kind of approach, where you have training on business training, where you have training on a particular agriculture product or livestock, and begin to give that land to people that need it. Okay, scrutinize them also. You can't just give it to all and sundry, because what's happening is with the reclamation of land currently, where people got back large tracts of land. I mean, it's not working in quite a few cases. I won't say in most cases. There are many cases where people have produced and became adding to the economy of the country. But it's something that we need to look at. Even education. I mean, is our education geared up to deal with issues in the economy? We need to revisit those. I mean, everyone can become a doctor. Even we establish the TVET colleges should also be approached to deal with.
What do you believe? What do you believe needs to happen? We've only got 2 minutes to wrap up very quickly. So you do believe that it's a good thing that we celebrate Freedom Day because at least we're free. What needs to change very quickly? What needs to change in the country?
We need to take harsher action against those that are robbing our state-owned enterprises. I think, we're not dealing with that effectively.
Finally, do you believe you're going to see great results with the upcoming elections, and do you think that's going to make a difference?
It's very difficult to say. I come from Mudimole, where we had a DA in power, and not much has changed. We have the ANC. DA is combined with the EFF, or three of the major parties. I don't know. It's very. But let's hope that the ANC doesn't have the power it had in the past, because with that power came abuse. And
that's where we have to leave it. Thank you indeed. Much luck and success with the second publication of the book. That, of course, is Coolie Bandiet. Thank you for coming in to talk with us, and I certainly do look forward to talking with you sometime in the future.
Exactly. Thank you so much to you too, Julie.
And that's where we leave it. My guest, Zunaid Mosam, the author of the book Coolie Bandiet. He's also a journalist and a political activist. And I think now, post-apartheid, as we go into Freedom Day, he is going to start becoming a social activist. That's what we need in the country. Social activists to make meaningful change. Till the next time, thank you for your company. As always, Assalamu alaikum, and a big shout out to the production team. And of course, Khudafiz from me, Julie Ali.